Imagine being the most powerful man in the city, firing people for sport, only to wake up one morning and realize your quiet, overlooked assistant actually owns the very chair you're sitting on. Sounds impossible. For Stephen Evans, it wasn't just possible, it was the nightmare that saved his life. You think you know who holds the power in the room? Look again. It's usually the person pouring the coffee. We've all been there, feeling invisible, undervalued, watching arrogant leaders take credit for our hard work. It burns, doesn't it? But what if you had the ultimate secret weapon? What if you could flip the script and destroy their ego without saying a single word? This isn't just a story about business, it's about that deep, burning desire we all have to see justice served cold. Meet Stephen, a CEO blinded by his own reflection, and Riley, the invisible assistant he treats like furniture. But Riley has a secret. A multi-million-dollar secret that she's hiding in plain sight. In this video, we're going to take you on a roller coaster ride of betrayal, poverty, and the most satisfying redemption arc you've ever seen. You will witness a shocking twist that redefines the meaning of power move. Stephen is about to lose everything: his money, his reputation, his friends. He's going to end up on the street, abandoned by the very people he enriched. And the only hand reaching out to save him? It belongs to the woman he humiliated every single day. Will he learn his lesson before it's too late? Or will Riley finally unleash the power she's been holding back and crush him? Buckle up, because this story is going to make you cheer, cry, and scream at your scream. Before we dive into the chaos, smash that subscribe button to join our community of storytellers, like this video if you believe in karma, and let me know in the comments, have you ever had a boss who underestimated you? Let's get into it. Stephen Evans entered the boardroom with the heavy, rhythmic gait of a CEO who believed his position was divinely ordained, utterly blind to the shifting tectonic plates of corporate loyalty beneath his feet. He adjusted his bespoke Italian tie, a symbol of his status as a rich man, and scanned the faces of the board of directors, failing to notice the predatory glint in their eyes that signaled an imminent ambush. The atmosphere was thick with unsaid words, a suffocating tension that Stephen arrogantly mistook for respect, unaware that the silence was actually the sound of a guillotine blade being hoisted into place. In the corner, his unassuming assistant, Riley Harris, prepared the meeting minutes with a quiet efficiency that rendered her invisible to the titans of industry, despite her being the only person in the room with a moral compass. She watched the wolves encircle their prey, her face a mask of professional detachment, hiding the tumultuous knowledge that she held the keys to the kingdom they were fighting over. The chairman didn't waste time with pleasantries. He launched a power move so aggressive it sucked the oxygen out of the room, sliding a dossier of fabricated evidence across the mahogany table with the force of a declaration of war. Stephen felt a cold sweat prickle his spine as he realized this wasn't a performance review, it was a carefully orchestrated betrayal designed to decapitate his leadership in a single, bloody stroke. The accusations were ludicrous yet damaging, weaving a narrative of incompetence that was clearly constructed to leave him humiliated and defenseless before the shareholders. He looked for allies among the faces he had enriched for a decade, but found only the stone-cold stare of complicity, a stark reminder that in the high-stakes world of billions, friendship is merely a transactional illusion. If you've ever felt the ground crumble beneath you while everyone watched, you know the specific taste of this panic. Riley Harris continued to type, her fingers moving like a pianist playing a requiem, capturing every poisonous word and every lie for a future reckoning that only she could foresee. To the board, she was just the help, a piece of office furniture to be underestimated and ignored, but in reality, she was a vault of secrets, documenting the business drama with forensic precision. Stephen's voice rose in a desperate crescendo, cracking under the weight of the injustice, his pleas for reason bouncing off the walls of avarice that surrounded him. He was a man drowning in a sea of sharks, flailing for a lifeline, completely oblivious to the fact that the quiet woman pouring water at the sidebar was the only lifeboat in the ocean. It is a profound irony that the people we ignore are often the ones who witness our truest selves. The meeting devolved into a spectacle of cruelty, with each board member taking a turn to twist the knife, stripping Stephen of his dignity layer by layer until he was raw and exposed. They attacked his character, his decisions, and his legacy, aiming to destroy not just his career but his very identity, ensuring he would never rise again to challenge their greed. Stephen stood paralyzed, the shocking twist of their disloyalty paralyzing his intellect, leaving him to endure the barrage like a prisoner facing a firing squad without a blindfold. The concept of karma seemed distant and broken in that room, replaced by the brutal efficiency of corporate Darwinism where the ruthless eat the unsuspecting. How much can a human spirit endure before it snaps under the weight of collective malice? Unbeknownst to the vultures picking at Stephen's carcass, Riley was not merely an observer, she was the secret shareholder who had been quietly accumulating voting rights through shell companies for years. Her silence wasn't submission, it was strategy, a long game played with the patience of a saint and the tactical mind of a grandmaster. While Stephen felt his world ending, Riley was calculating the exact moment to reveal her hand, waiting for the board to overextend themselves in their arrogance. She knew that true power doesn't need to shout, it waits in the shadows, gathering strength until it is unstoppable and absolute. The board thought they were writing the final chapter of Stephen's life, but they were merely writing the prologue to Riley's ascent. As the vote of no confidence was cast, hands raised in a uniform salute to treachery, Stephen slumped into his chair, a broken effigy of the man who walked in 10 minutes ago. He didn't see Riley's eyes lift from her screen, locking onto him with a complex mixture of pity and resolve, a silent promise that this wasn't the end. The board smirked, clinking their invisible glasses to a successful coup, completely ignorant of the undercover boss dynamic playing out right under their noses. They had won the battle, yes, but they had unwittingly declared war on a force they couldn't even comprehend. The true colors of everyone in the room had been revealed, painted in shades of greed and resilience.
Stephen was escorted out, a king exiled from his own castle, leaving Riley behind in the lion's den to pack her things and prepare for the next phase of the conflict. She moved with a calm deliberation that unnerved a few who noticed her, a ghost in the machine of their corruption. She knew that revenge is a dish best served not just cold, but legally binding and financially devastating. As she walked out, she didn't look back at the celebrating board members. She looked forward to the storm she was about to unleash. The justice coming for them would be biblical, and it would with the face of the woman they never bothered to greet. For Riley Harris, every day as Stephen's assistant was a masterclass in emotional endurance, a grueling test where she had to swallow her pride to serve a greater purpose. She navigated the toxicity of the office with the grace of a dancer, dodging Stephen's moods and the board directors' dismissive sneers, while secretly holding the majority stake in the empire. It is a unique kind of torture to be treated as an intellectual inferior by men whose entire net worth is a fraction of your own hidden portfolio. She was a secret shareholder masquerading as a servant, a rich man's equal in wealth but a superior in character, waiting for the universe to align the stars for her revelation. Imagine possessing the power to fire your boss, but choosing to fetch his coffee instead. That is discipline. Stephen, in his ignorance, treated Riley with the casual indifference one reserves for a malfunctioning appliance, barking orders without making eye contact, his arrogance a shield against genuine connection. He was the archetype of the out-off-touch CEO, consumed by the business drama he created, blind to the human toll of his leadership style on the people who kept his world spinning. Riley absorbed his rudeness, her face a mask of serenity, but inside, she was cataloging every slight, every moment of disrespect, weighing his soul against the potential for redemption. She wasn't just working for a paycheck. She was conducting a psychological audit of the man who held her father's legacy in his hands. The office environment was a cesspool of sycophancy and backstabbing, a place where kindness was viewed as weakness and ruthlessness was rewarded with bonuses. Riley was a target of daily microaggressions, her quiet demeanor mistaken for a lack of ambition, her plain clothes mocked by colleagues drowning in debt to look rich. It was a classic undercover boss dynamic, but without the safety net of camera crew, leaving Riley exposed to the raw, unfiltered cruelty of the corporate ladder. She saw their true colors in high definition, the way they kicked down and kissed up, unaware that the woman they bumped into in the hallway owned the building. Late at night, when the cleaning crew hummed in the background, Riley would sit at her desk, reviewing the company financials with the sharp eye of a forensic accountant. She saw the cracks in the foundation, the dangerous leverage Stephen was accumulating, the slow bleed caused by the board's embezzlement. She fixed what she could from the shadows, a guardian angel for a man who didn't believe in them, performing miracles of karma that went unnoticed and unthanked. She was the unstoppable force keeping the company afloat, the invisible spine of the organization, proving that true leadership is often silent and uncelebrated. There were fleeting moments, cracks in Stephen's armor, where the exhausted man beneath the CEO title would emerge, rubbing his temples in despair. In those seconds, Riley felt the dangerous pull of an office romance that existed only in the realm of what if, a connection forged in the silence of shared burdens. She wanted to tell him everything, to break the shocking twist of him gently, but fear held her back, fear that he would hate her for the deception, or worse, that he would only love her for money. So she remained the assistant, guarding her secret like a dragon guards gold, waiting for him to prove he was worth the truth. The tension was becoming unsustainable, a taut wire ready to snap under the pressure of the looming hostile takeover. Riley knew that the betrayal brewing in the boardroom would soon spill over, forcing her to choose between her cover and Stephen's survival. She prepared for the inevitable collision, fortifying her emotional defenses, knowing that when the truth came out, nothing would ever be the same. The humiliated Stephen would either rise from the ashes or burn completely, and she would be the one holding the match. As she turned off the lights, leaving the empty office in darkness, Riley whispered a promise to the ghost of the company's founder. She would not let the vultures win. She would unleash a revenge so calculated and precise that would be studied in business schools for generations. The underestimated girl was about to become the queen, and the world was not ready for her reign. The negotiation room was a pressure cooker, the air thick with the scent of stale coffee and desperation, as Stephen Evans fought to salvage a deal that was slipping through his fingers like sand. He was sweating profusely, his usual charm failing against the icy logic of the opposing legal team, his CEO bravado crumbling into panic. Riley stood by the wall, a silent sentinel clutching the files, her mind racing miles ahead of the conversation, identifying the exact clause that could turn the tide. She stepped forward, clearing her throat to offer a lifeline, but Stephen snapped his fingers at her without looking, demanding water like she was a servant. It was a power move of breathtaking ignorance, reducing his greatest asset to a waitress in the middle of a war zone. Riley froze, the sting of humiliation burning her cheeks, the brilliant strategy dying on her lips as the room watched the great Stephen Evans treat his staff with contempt. She held the solution in her hands, a legal loophole that would save the company millions, yet she was silenced by the very man she was trying to save. It is a profound tragedy to watch someone dig their own grave while holding the shovel you offer to help them build a foundation. If you were in her shoes, holding the winning lottery ticket for a man who treats you like dirt, would you tear it up? Despite the searing rejection, Riley's integrity would not allow her to let the company suffer for Stephen's ego. She poured the water with steady hands, masking her fury, and scribbled the legal argument on a cocktail napkin with a trembling pen. It was an act of pure redemption offered to a sinner who didn't even know he was being saved, a gesture of grace that transcended the toxic hierarchy of the room. She slid the napkin under his glass, retreating into the shadows of the assistant role, watching him with the intensity of a bomb disposal expert waiting for the wire to be cut. Stephen took a sip, his eyes scanning the table in desperation until they landed on the scrawled ink of the napkin. He paused, the gears in his head grinding as he absorbed the brilliance of the argument, a spark of hope igniting in his defeated gaze. He didn't look at Riley, he simply adopted the idea as his own, pivoting the negotiation with a renewed vigor that stunned the opposition. The business drama shifted instantly. The predators became the prey, outmaneuvered by a strategy they didn't see coming, because it didn't come from a man sitting across from them. The deal was saved, the contract signed, and Stephen leaned back in his chair, basking in the adoration of the room. The rich man victorious once again. He accepted the handshakes and praise, his chest puffed out with pride, never once acknowledging the woman standing silently behind him who had orchestrated his triumph. The betrayal here was subtle but deep, the theft of credit, the erasure of contribution, the reinforcement of the lie that he was the sole genius in the room. Riley watched him, a bittersweet mix of pride in her work and disgust at his blindness churning in her gut. This moment crystallized the toxicity of his leadership, proving that he believed he was unstoppable solely because of his own talents, unaware of the scaffolding holding him up. He was a statue with feet of clay, kept upright by Riley's unseen hands. And the higher he climbed, the more dangerous his inevitable fall would be. Karma was taking notes, and the balance sheet of his arrogance was heavily in the red. It's easy to think you're flying when you don't realize someone else is carrying you. As they exited the building, Stephen tossed a casual good job with the water over his shoulder, a crumb of acknowledgement that felt more like an insult. Riley smiled a tight, sad smile, knowing that she was a secret shareholder who had just increased her own net worth by millions with that napkin. She was the undercover boss of his success, the silent partner in his glory, and soon he would learn that a king without a queen is just a man in a funny hat. The quarterly meeting with Marcus Thorne, a rival executive notorious for his misogyny, was always a battlefield. But this time it descended into a personal attack that left the room paralyzed. Thorne, emboldened by wine and arrogance, locked eyes with Riley and unleashed a barrage of insults about her appearance, mocking her librarian suit and questioning her value in a room of serious men. The air went dead silent. All eyes turned to Stephen, the CEO, expecting him to defend his team, to show the spine of a leader. Instead, Stephen let out a nervous, sycophantic laugh, signaling to everyone that his assistant was fair game for abuse. Riley stood there, clutching her binder like a shield, feeling the hot wash of humiliation flood her senses. Not because of Thorne's words she expected poison from a snake, but because of Stephen's betrayal. His silence was louder than any shout. It was a power move of cowardice, a declaration that closing the merger was more important than the human dignity of the person who organized his entire life. It was a moment of absolute clarity, revealing the true colors of a man who would sell his soul for a percentage point. How many times have we stayed silent to keep the peace, only to start a war within ourselves? Thorne continued, fueled by Stephen's complicity, making Riley the punchline of his toxic jokes, reducing her to an object of ridicule while the board of directors chuckled uncomfortably. Stephen nodded along, desperate to please the alpha in the room, completely blind to the business drama he was inciting and the bridge he was burning with the only person who actually mattered. He didn't see the secret shareholder tightening her grip on the pen until the plastic cracked, didn't feel the shift in the atmosphere of pressure as Riley's loyalty evaporated. This was a turning point, the moment where the potential office romance turned into cold, hard resolve. Riley realized that Stephen wasn't just misguided, he was weak. He prioritized the approval of cruel men over the respect of good women. Justice was no longer a theoretical concept. It was a necessary corrective action. She decided then and there that Stephen needed to lose everything to understand the value of anything. Karma was coming, and she would be the one to open the door for it. After the meeting, Stephen had the audacity to dismiss the incident with a casual, "Don't be so sensitive. It's just business banter." The phrase hung in the air like a foul odor. Just business. He had no idea he had just insulted the woman who could hostile take over his entire life. The shocking twist was brewing in the dark corners of Riley's mind, and Stephen was unwittingly pouring gasoline on the pyre. He was underestimated her resilience and vastly overestimating his own invincibility. Riley returned to her desk, her face a mass of stone, and made a single, cryptic phone call to her broker. "Execute the buy order on Thorne Industries," she whispered, her voice devoid of emotion. Crush him. She wasn't just going to save Stephen's company, she was going to annihilate his enemies, and eventually teach him a lesson he would never forget. It was a revenge move of epic proportions, born in the silence he failed to break. That evening, while Stephen celebrated the success of the meeting with expensive scotch, Riley sat alone, analyzing the market trends, her heart hardened into a diamond. She found the flaws Stephen had missed, the traps Thorne had set, and she prepared to spring them. The silence of that afternoon would haunt Stephen forever, a reminder of the day he lost the loyalty of the undercover boss who walked beside him. It was 3:00 a.m., the witching hour for corporate disasters, when the compliance algorithms flagged a catastrophic error in Stephen's latest wire transfer. He had authorized a transaction that violated international sanctions, a mistake that would not only cost the company millions in fines, but could land the CEO in federal prison. Stephen was asleep in his penthouse, dreaming of his own grandeur, blissfully unaware that the sword of Damocles was hanging by a thread over his neck. But Riley was awake. She was always awake. As the assistant who actually ran the conglomerate, she caught the error the second it flashed on the server. She could have let it happen. It would have been the perfect, poetic revenge, the ultimate punishment for his arrogance and the recent betrayal. The board would have fired him for cause, his reputation would be incinerated, and he would be ruined. But Riley paused, looking at the framed photo of Stephen's father on her desk, the man who had given her a chance when she was nobody. She sighed, a sound heavy with the burden of integrity. She wasn't a destroyer, she was a builder. She logged into the admin portal using access codes Stephen didn't even know existed and began the arduous task of fixing his mess. For 4 agonizing hours, she worked with the focus of a neurosurgeon, rewriting code, rerouting funds through legal channels, and scrubbing the logs to prevent a federal audit. She was the undercover boss cleaning up the toddler spill, the silent guardian protecting the kingdom from its own king. By sunrise, the crisis was averted, the money was safe, and Stephen was saved from being humiliated on a global stage. Drop a respect in the comments for the people who fix the world while the rest of us sleep. The next morning, Stephen breezed into the office, grabbing his latte without a glance at her, asking cheerfully, "Any hiccups with the transfer?" Riley looked up, her eyes rimmed with red, her body aching from exhaustion. "No, Mr. Evans." It went through smoothly. She didn't seek credit. She didn't ask for a raise. She simply did the job because her true colors were painted in shades of duty and honor. It was a moment of profound integrity facing off against oblivious entitlement. This act of silent salvation highlighted the massive disconnect between the figurehead and the foundation. Stephen was the face on the magazine covers, the rich man, but Riley was the spine, the brain, and the heart of the operation. A body cannot stand without a spine, no matter how handsome the face is. Stephen believed he was unstoppable, never realizing that his momentum was entirely generated by the woman he ignored. However, this was a final withdrawal from her emotional bank account. Fixing his finances was one thing, fixing his soul was another. She realized that as long as she kept placing pillows under him, he would never learn to fear the fall. He needed to hit the concrete. He needed to bleed. She had saved the company, yes, but she couldn't save Stephen from himself anymore. The safety net was being withdrawn, stitch by stitch. As she watched him close his office door, shutting her out as usual, she felt a strange, cold peace. She had balanced the books. She had done her duty to his father. Now, whatever karma was coming for Stephen, he would have to face it alone. The shocking twist was that by saving him this one last time, she was actually clearing the deck for the lesson that would destroy him to rebuild him. The day of reckoning arrived not with a bang, but with the sterile, terrifying precision of a corporate execution. The board of directors, corrupt and hungry for total domination, made their move. They didn't just fire Stephen, they framed him with meticulous cruelty that was breathtaking. False documents, planted evidence of embezzlement in offshore accounts, and leaked stories to the financial press painted Stephen as a thief stealing from the widows and orphans fund. It was a lie, a monstrous betrayal, but the optics were damning. Security marched into his office, stripping him of his badge in front of the entire weeping staff. Stephen stood there, stunned, watching his life disintegrate in real time, his protest of innocence drowning in the sea of judgment. "This is a setup," he shouted, but he looked like a madman, a desperate criminal caught red-handed. He scanned the room for support, but saw only eyes averting his gaze, the fear of association stronger than the truth. He had cultivated fear, not loyalty, and now he was reaping the bitter harvest. He was humiliated, paraded past his own glass walls like a captured animal. The CEO was now the pariah. Have you ever been accused of something you didn't do and felt the walls of reality closing in? Riley watched from her desk, her heart pounding against her ribs. She knew he was innocent of the theft, even if he was guilty of hubris. She saw the board members smirking in the background, the power move complete. They froze his assets, locked his bank accounts, and smeared his name across every digital ticker in the city. He was a rich man suddenly poorer than a beggar, stripped of his resources and his dignity in a single hour. The tragedy was absolute. Stephen tried to call his friends, the inner circle of elites he partied with. No one answered. His phone was a brick of silence. The business drama had turned him into radioactive waste. He sat on the curb outside the skyscraper that bore his name, head in his hands, finally understanding the true cost of his superficial relationships. He was alone. Truly, utterly, terrifyingly alone. Riley packed her things slowly, methodically. She wasn't fired, but she couldn't breathe the same air as those traitors. She walked out the revolving doors and saw him sitting there, a broken king on a concrete throne. The shocking twist for the onlookers was that the invisible assistant stopped. She didn't walk past him. She didn't gloat. She stood over him, casting a shadow that blocked the harsh sun of his exposure. "Stephen?" she said softly. He looked up, tears streaking the grime on his face, flinching as if expecting another blow. Instead, he saw the only face that wasn't twisted in mockery. Riley extended a hand, not as an employee, but as a human being. It was an act of redemption offered before he had even earned it. She was offering him a lifeline when everyone else was throwing stones. "Come with me," she said. "No, I told you so. No lectures. Just a simple command born of kindness." Stephen, stripped his pride and his title, took her hand. It was the first time he had ever truly touched her skin. The assistant was leading the CEO, and for the first time in his life, Stephen Evans was following someone else's lead into the unknown. Stephen's fall from grace was swift and brutal, a free fall from the penthouse to the pavement. The media camped outside his home, forcing him to flee like a fugitive. His credit cards were declined at the cheap motel. His luxury car was repossessed in a public spectacle that went viral. He was wandering the rain-slicked streets, a rich man learning the harsh, biting lesson of poverty in a single night. He was hungry, cold, and terrified. The betrayal by his board was compounded by the absolute abandonment of his social circle. Not a single person offered him a couch. That is, until Riley found him shivering on a park bench, soaked to the bone. She didn't bring a limousine, she brought an umbrella and a warm coat. "You can't stay here, Stephen," she said, her voice firm but gentle, cutting through his despair. He looked at her with hollow eyes, his arrogance washed away by the rain and the tears. "I have nowhere to go," he admitted, his voice cracking with shame. It was the most honest thing he had ever said. True friends aren't the ones who drink your champagne. They're the ones who hold your hair when you're sick. Riley took him to her apartment. It wasn't a penthouse, it was a modest, cozy walk-up in a quiet neighborhood. Stephen hesitated at the door, paralyzed by shame. He had never even asked where she lived. He stepped inside, dripping wet, feeling like an intruder in the life of the woman he had ignored for years. She gave him a towel and some dry, clothes-oversized sweats that belonged to her brother. He looked ridiculous, but he felt warm for the first time in days. Over a simple dinner of instant soup, the dynamic shifted irrevocably. There was no CEO and assistant here, just two human beings. Stephen tried to apologize, but the words stuck in his throat, choked by the magnitude of his failure. Riley didn't push him. She just listened as he poured out his confusion and anger about the board of directors. She offered him human dignity when the world had stripped it away. She was a harbor in his storm, the only solid ground left. "Why?" he asked eventually, staring into his soup. "Why are you helping me? I was terrible to you." Riley looked at him, her eyes searching his soul. "Because I know who you can be, Stephen. I remember the man your father talked about." It was a subtle reference to her connection, a hint of the secret shareholder legacy, but Stephen missed it. He was too overwhelmed by her grace. This was karma reverse, getting what you need, not what you deserve. That night, Stephen slept on her couch. It was lumpy and the streetlight shone through the window, but it was the best sleep he had had in years. He was safe. He realized that all his money couldn't buy this feeling of safety. Riley was in the next room, a guardian angel he had taken for granted. The office romance tropes were flipped. This wasn't about seduction. It was about survival and soul-searching. Riley lay awake, listening to his breathing, her heart heavy with the secret she still kept. She knew the road ahead was hard. He had to rebuild himself from zero. She would help him, but she wouldn't do it for him. He had to find his own redemption. But for tonight, she had saved him from the abyss. The shocking twist of his life was just beginning learning to be a human being. Living in Riley's apartment was a culture shock that struck Stephen with the force of a physical blow. There was no maid service, no chef, no concierge to anticipate his whims. He had to learn how to operate a washing machine, how to make toast without burning it, and how to exist in a space smaller than his old walk-in closet. Riley watched him with a mix of amusement and patience, guiding him through the basics of normal life like a parent teaching a child. It was a business drama turned domestic comedy, but with the highest stakes imaginable his soul. Slowly, the layers of his calcified arrogance began to peel away. He watched Riley budget her expenses, realizing with a pang of guilt how hard she worked for the salary he used to pay her without a second thought. He saw her kindness to her neighbors, her genuine smile, her true colors shining in the mundane moments of grocery shopping and laundry. He began to help. He washed the dishes badly at first and swept the floor. These small acts of service were chipping away at the statue of the CEO and revealing the flesh-and-blood man underneath. One evening, they sat on the fire escape, sharing a cheap bottle of wine, and looking at the city skyline where his tower stood like a beacon of his past life. "I miss it," he confessed, his voice low. "Not the power. The work. Building things." Riley nodded, understanding the itch. "Then build something new," she said, her eyes reflecting the city lights. "Build something honest." Her words resonated deep within him. She was reshaping his values, teaching him that success wasn't about the stock price, but about integrity. If you lost everything today, what part of yourself would you miss the most? The tension between them changed, deepening into something profound. It wasn't romantic yet, but it was intimate in a way he had never experienced. They shared stories. Stephen spoke of his lonely childhood in boarding schools. Riley spoke of her struggles to be taken seriously in a man's world. He began to see her beauty, not just physically, but the radiance of her spirit. He was falling in love with a savior, completely unaware that she was a secret shareholder holding his fate in her hands. Riley, too, felt her walls lowering. Seeing Stephen vulnerable, stripped of his armor, made her heart ache. He was trying. He was really trying. He apologized for the water incident in the negotiation, for the silence with Thorne. He was seeking redemption in the small moments, in the way he poured her coffee or held the door. It was working. The karma was cleansing him, scrubbing away the toxicity. But secrets have a way of festering in the quiet. Riley knew she had to tell him about the shares, about her wealth, but she was afraid. Afraid he would think she played him. Afraid he would retreat into a shell of mistrust. She delayed, enjoying this simple life they had built in the eye of the storm. It was a fragile bubble of happiness, floating over a bed of nails. And like all bubbles, it was destined to pop. Stephen was becoming the man she hoped he could be. But the shadow of the board of directors and the looming shareholder meeting cast a long pall over their makeshift sanctuary. The test was coming, and it would demand everything from both of them. The bubble burst on a Tuesday morning with the violence of a gunshot. Stephen was rummaging through Riley's desk, drawer looking for a pen to circle job ads in the newspaper, a humbling task for a former CEO. His hand brushed against a thick, creamy envelope that felt out of place. Curious, and perhaps a bit desperate for any distraction, he opened it. Inside was a bank statement. But not just any statement. It showed assets in the millions, and a portfolio of stocks in his company that gave the holder majority control. The name on the account, Riley Harris. Stephen's world tilted on its axis. The blood drained from his face, leaving him cold and shaking. He stared at the numbers, his mind racing to the worst possible conclusion, fueled by the paranoia of his recent trauma. She wasn't just an assistant. She was rich, wealthier than he had ever been liquid, and she owned the company. The betrayal he had suffered kicked in, warping his perception. Why would she hide this? Unless she was working with him? Unless she was a spy? He confronted her the moment she walked in with groceries, throwing the papers on the table, his face a mask of fury and hurt. "You own it?" he shouted, his voice raw. "You own the whole damn thing? And you let them fire me?" He accused her of corporate espionage, of playing a sick, twisted game with his life. He called her a liar, a manipulator, an undercover boss who enjoyed watching him squirm in the mud while she sat on a throne of gold. Riley dropped the groceries, eggs cracking on the floor, a mess mirroring the situation. "Stephen, listen to me," she pleaded, reaching out, but he was deaf to reason. He felt like a fool, a humiliated puppet dancing on her strings. "I trusted you," he yelled, the vein in his forehead pulsing. "You were the only one I trusted, and you're just like them." The office romance that was blossoming withered instantly under the heat of his accusation. It was a tragic misunderstanding of Shakespearean proportions. He saw malice where there was only protection. He didn't see that she bought the shares to save the company. He only saw that she had the power to stop his pain and didn't use either, so he thought. He lashed out, his old arrogance resurfacing as a defense mechanism to protect his breaking heart. He wanted to hurt her before she could hurt him more. Anger is often just a bodyguard for grief. Have you ever lashed out at the wrong person because you were in pain? Riley stood there, tears streaming down her face, her heart shattering. She tried to explain about his father, about the legacy, but he wouldn't let her speak. "Get out!" he screamed, forgetting it was her apartment. Then, realizing his mistake, he grabbed his jacket. "No, it'll get out. I don't want your charity. I don't want anything from a liar." He stormed out, slamming the door, leaving Riley alone in the mess of broken eggs and broken trust. The shocking twist had torn them apart. Stephen walked back into the cold city, convinced he was a victim of the ultimate con, completely unaware that he had just walked away from his only salvation and the only person who truly loved him. Stephen returned hours later, his anger cooled by the freezing rain, replaced by a gnawing, sickly shame. He realized the magnitude of his mistake. She had saved him when no one else would. He climbed the stairs to the modest apartment, rehearsing his apology, ready to beg. He knocked on the door. No answer. He knocked again, harder. Silence. He tried the handle. Unlocked. He pushed it open, his heart sinking. The apartment was dark and smelled stale. "Riley?" he called out, his voice echoing in the void. The silence that answered him was heavy and final. He turned on the light. The apartment was stripped. Her clothes were gone. The photos were gone. On the table, where the bank statement had been, lay a single key, the spare key she had given him, and a note. "I never wanted to hurt you. I only wanted to save your father's dream. Good luck, Stephen." That was it. No address, no phone number. Riley Harris had vanished. She had executed the ultimate power move, the withdrawal of presence. She realized that as long as she was there, he would project his insecurities onto her. She had to leave for him to see the truth. Stephen sank to the floor, clutching the note, weeping like a child. The realization hit him like a physical blow. She was gone, the assistant he had taken for granted, the secret shareholder he had accused, the friend he had insulted. She had walked away. He was now truly, completely alone. The corrupt board of directors was still in power, and he had just driven away his only ally. Heartbroken didn't cover it. He felt hollowed out. The business drama seemed insignificant compared to the loss of her presence. He looked around the empty room, seeing the ghost of her kindness in every corner. The mug she gave him, the blanket on the couch. He had faced coup, the firing, the poverty. But this was the breaking point. This was the rock bottom. He tried to call her. Disconnected. He went to her parents' old address he found in a file. Dead end. She had covered her tracks with the efficiency of a ghost. Riley was gone, leaving Stephen to face the consequences of his actions. It was karma in its purest form. You don't know what you have until it's gone. Drop a broken heart emoji if you've ever pushed someone away and regretted it instantly. He sat in the empty apartment for days, staring at the wall, barely eating. But slowly, a new feeling emerged from the despair. Determination. She believed in him. She said she wanted to save his father's dream. He couldn't let her down, even if she wasn't there to see it. He had to fight, not for the money, but for her, for the redemption she believed he was capable of. He would become the man she saw, or he would die trying, without Riley to guide him. Stephen struggled to navigate the labyrinth of his own life. He tried to organize a counterattack against the board, but he couldn't find his files. He couldn't remember the passwords. He missed appointments. It was a chaotic mess. And in that chaos, The truth began to dawn on him with blinding clarity. Every success he had in the last 5 years, every smooth deal, every averted crisis, it wasn't him. It was never him. It was her. He found old emails in her sent folder, which he guessed a password to his father's birthday, drafts of contracts where she had corrected his fatal mistakes in the margins. He found schedules where she had built in buffer time because she knew he would be late. He realized that the catastrophic error from a few months ago, the one that disappeared overnight, must have been her doing. The assistant wasn't just assisting, she was piloting the plane while he posed in the cockpit for photos. This realization was a blow to his ego, but a boost to his respect for her. She was brilliant. The underestimated woman was a genius. He sat amidst the paperwork, laughing bitterly at his own blindness. He had treated the architect of his success like a coffee girl. No wonder she had the money to buy the shares. She was probably running her own investments with the same brilliance she applied to his company. He started to see the pattern of the secret shareholder. The shares weren't bought to host a hostile takeover. They were bought defensively, blocking the board's previous attempt to sell off parts of the company. She had been fighting a war for him while he was busy playing golf. The betrayal he accused her of was actually the highest form of loyalty. This clarity reshaped his mission. He wasn't just fighting for his job anymore. He was fighting to validate her work. He had to prove that her effort wasn't wasted on a loser. He began to study the company bylaws, really study them, looking for the loopholes she would have found. He channeled his inner Riley. What would she do became his mantra. He discovered a clause about emergency shareholder meetings. It was obscure, buried in the text, but it was there. Riley had highlighted it in an old document. It was a breadcrumb she left behind. She was still guiding him, even in her absence. The true colors of his leadership were finally merging with the competence she had modeled. He felt a surge of energy. He wasn't unstoppable yet, but he was moving. He prepared his case, gathering evidence, not to save himself, but to honor the silent partner who had carried him for so long. It was time to give the board of directors hell. Success is often a team sport played by a solo player. Who doesn't realize it? Tag your silent partner in the comments. Desperate to find her and needing ammunition for the meeting, Stephen dove into Riley's background with the intensity of a detective. He hired a private investigator with the last of his cash, literally selling his watch to pay for it. The report that came back was a shocking twist that left him weeping on the floor of the empty apartment. Riley wasn't just a savvy investor. She was the daughter of his father's first business, partner of the man Stephen's father had bought out decades ago in a deal that many called unfair. The family had lost everything, but Riley never held a grudge. Instead, she invested the small settlement her father left her, compounding it quietly over years of disciplined trading. She came to work for Stephen not to destroy the Evans legacy, but to protect it from corporate vultures, honoring the friendship her father once had with his. She bought the shares to stop the board of directors from dissecting the company. She was the guardian of the legacy he was too arrogant to protect. The revenge narrative he constructed in his head shattered into a million pieces. It was a story of pure, unadulterated love and integrity. She had watched him grow up from afar, joined the company to help him, and stayed despite his cruelty because she believed in the potential of the Evans name. This knowledge broke Stephen completely and then put him back together stronger. He wasn't just a CEO fighting for a paycheck. He was the heir to a broken promise, and he had to make it right. He realized that the bank statement he found was her war chest, meant to be used for him, not against him. He had accused his savior of being his executioner. Armed with this truth, Stephen's fear vanished. He had nothing left to lose and a debt of honor to pay. He put on his only suit, the one Riley had cleaned for him, and looked in the mirror. He didn't see the arrogant rich man anymore. He saw a man on a mission of redemption. He practiced his speech. Not a speech of corporate buzzwords, but a speech of truth. He would expose the board, yes, but he would also expose himself. He would admit his failures. He would acknowledge the secret shareholder who saved them all. He was ready to face the fire. The investigator found one last thing, a flight manifest. Riley was heading to Europe, likely to disappear forever. Stephen checked the time. The shareholder meeting was in 2 hours. He couldn't stop her flight, but he could stop the board. He would win the company back, and then he would spend the rest of his life finding her to beg for forgiveness. The unstoppable force was finally in motion. The emergency shareholder meeting was held in the grand ballroom of the hotel, a venue dripping with excess while the company crumbled. The board of directors sat on the stage, smug and secure, ready to finalize the hostile takeover and sell the company for parts. They were laughing, toasting to their own greed. The press was there, ready to document the death of the Evans empire. Suddenly, the heavy double doors boomed open. Stephen Evans stood there, not the polished, manicured CEO of the past, but a man with a scruffy beard, a slightly ill-fitting suit, and eyes that burned with a terrifying intensity. The room went silent. A security guard stepped forward, but Stephen walked right past him with such authority that the man instinctively stepped back. It was a power move fueled by righteous fury. "You started this meeting without the most important person," Stephen announced, his voice booming, without a microphone. The chairman sneered. "Mr. Evans, you are trespassing. You have no standing here. You hold no shares." They laughed, a cruel, collective sound intended to leave him humiliated. Stephen climbed the stage steps. "I may not hold the shares," he said, facing the audience, "but I hold the truth." He began to speak, listing the board's crimes, the manufactured evidence, the betrayal. He spoke with a passion they had never seen. He didn't use notes. He used the facts Riley had gathered. He was channeling her spirit. The board members shouted for security, panicking. "Cut his mic. Throw him out." But the crowd was captivated. This was real business drama, unscripted and raw. Stephen ignored the chaos. He looked directly into the camera streaming the event. "I messed up," he admitted to the world. "I was blind, but I am not a thief. These men are." He was buying time. He didn't know for what, but he refused to go down quietly. He was fighting for Riley's legacy as much as his own. He was the undercover boss of his own redemption arc, exposing the rot at the core of the company. The tension was palpable. If you were in the audience, would you cheer for him or think he's crazy? Just as the security guards finally grabbed him, dragging him away from the podium, the lights in the room flickered. The giant screen behind the stage went black, then flashed a single logo, the Evans Harris Trust. The room gasped. The doors opened again. And this time, the silence was absolute. Riley Harris walked in. She wasn't wearing her gray assistant's cardigan. She was wearing a tailored white suit that screamed power and elegance. She walked with a grace that demanded attention. She didn't look at Stephen, she looked straight at the board of directors. The security guards holding Stephen froze, unsure of what to do. The aura of the secret shareholder had entered the room. The board members looked confused. "Who is this?" One whispered, "That's just the secretary." Another laughed nervously. They began to chuckle again, their arrogance blinding them to the danger. "Ms. Harris, bring us some coffee," the chairman shouted, trying to reassert dominance. It was a fatal mistake, a cringe-worthy moment of sexism and stupidity. Riley stopped at the center of the room. She pulled a remote from her pocket and clicked it. The screen behind her displayed a pie chart. A massive slice, 51, was labeled Riley Harris. The laughter died instantly. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush bones. The shocking twist landed with the force of a nuclear bomb. The help was the boss. Stephen stared at her, his heart pounding in his chest. She hadn't left. She came back. She came back for him, or for the company. Riley turned the microphone stand Stephen had been dragged from. "I believe," she said, her voice calm and amplified, "that you are sitting in my chair." The chairman turned pale. This is impossible," he stammered. Riley ignored him. "I am the majority shareholder of Evans Tech, and I am calling this meeting to order." She looked at the press, then at the board. "For years, I have watched you leech off this company. I have watched you plot and scheme, and I stayed silent. But today, the silence ends." She finally looked at Stephen. Her eyes were unreadable, but there was a softness there, a hint of the office romance tension that still lingered. She nodded to the guards. "Release him. He works for me." The guards let go of Stephen immediately. It was the ultimate karma. The woman they mocked held the axe, and their necks were on the block. The room erupted in murmurs. This was the true colors of power. Not shouting, not bullying, but the quiet possession of the ultimate trump card. Riley Harris had arrived, and the reign of the corrupt board was over. Smash that like button if you love seeing the underdog take the crown. Riley didn't waste time. She was surgical. Motion to dismiss the current board of directors for breach of fiduciary duty and gross misconduct. She announced, "I second the motion." Stephen shouted from the floor, his voice thick with emotion. "As a majority shareholder, I vote yes," Riley said. Motion carried. In less than 30 seconds, she fired the most powerful men in the room. The security guards, realizing who signed their paychecks, turned on the board members. "Please escort these gentlemen out of the building," Riley commanded. The sight of the corrupt executives being led away, sputtering and red-faced, was pure justice. The crowd cheered. It was a moment of catharsis. The revenge of the decent against the corrupt. Riley then turned to the audience. "This company has lost its way," she said. "We focus on profits over people. We forgot our values." She looked at Stephen. "But we are going to fix it. Effective immediately. I am reinstating Stephen Evans as CEO." A gasp went through the room. Stephen looked shocked. "After everything?" "However," Riley continued, her voice stern, "he will serve under a probationary period. He will answer to a new chairman of the board. Me." She set the terms. Strict guidelines of kindness, integrity, and transparency. No more arrogance. No more toxicity. It was a power move, but a benevolent one. She was restoring him, but on her terms. Stephen walked up to the stage. He stood beside her, not in front of her. He looked at the crowd, then at Riley. He saw the assistant who had saved his life, the friend who had sheltered him, and the boss who was giving him a second chance. He felt a wave of humility wash over him. This was redemption in action. Riley wasn't just saving the company, she was saving the man. She was giving him the chance to be the leader she knew he could be. The underestimated woman had reshaped the entire corporate landscape in 10 minutes. The meeting ended not with a bang, but with a handshake. Riley and Stephen shook hands on stage. It was a partnership of equals. The rich man and the wealthy heart. The business drama had resolved into a new beginning. The press conference afterward was chaotic. But Stephen took the microphone with a new kind of confidence. He didn't talk about the stock price. He didn't talk about the synergy. He talked about Riley. "I stand here today," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "not because I am a genius, but because I was saved." He publicly apologized to Riley Harris. He admitted his blindness, his arrogance, and his failure to see the brilliance standing right beside him. "My true power wasn't in my title," he told the cameras, looking at Riley, who stood in the wings. "It was in the woman who loved this company enough to save it from its own CEO. It was a declaration of love disguised as a corporate statement." The world watched the CEO humble himself. It went viral instantly. The comment sections were flooded with support. The shocking twist had a happy ending. Stephen Evans had learned his lesson. He turned to Riley and held out his hand. She walked onto the stage, joining him. The flashbulbs popped, capturing the image of the new power couple. Later, in the quiet of the office, Riley's office, now Stephen looked at her. "I don't deserve this," he said softly. Riley smiled, the warmth finally returning to her eyes. "No, you don't," she agreed playfully. "But you will earn it every day." The office romance finally sparked for real, grounded in respect and shared truth. They stood by the window, looking out at the city. They now ruled together, not as master and servant, but as partners. The betrayal was the fire that forged them. The karma had come full circle. Stephen Evans was a better man, and Riley Harris was finally seen. The story of the assistant who owned the company became a legend in the business world. But for them, it was just the beginning. The unstoppable team had work to do, and this time they would do it right. Justice had been served, and love, against all odds, had won the day. So, Stephen learned the hard way that true wealth isn't in your bank account, but in the integrity of the people around you. He thought power was about command, but Riley showed him it's actually about service. In the end, the person he overlooked was the only one looking out for him. It's a powerful reminder never underestimate the quiet ones, for they might just be holding the keys to your castle. If you believe that kindness is the ultimate strength and that humility is the mark of a true leader, then you are in the right place. This channel is a home for those who value the human spirit. Click that subscribe button and join our community. Let's prove that good stories can change the world. Now I have a mission for you. First, like this video to help spread this message of redemption to someone who needs it. Second, comment below what would you have done if you were Riley? Would you have saved him or let him fall? I really want to read your answers. And third, share this story with a friend who needs a reminder that the tables can always turn. And while you recover from that emotional roller coaster, know that our channel is a treasure chest of stories just like this one. Dive into our playlist here to discover other journeys of betrayal and justice that will keep you on the edge of your seat. And to make sure you don't miss the next incredible story we're cooking up, trust me, it's a tearjerker. Activate that notification bell right now. You won't want to be left out of the next chapter. See you there.